Hurts lost it for Smith. It's a touchdown. Devontae Smith.
Bijan Robinson. Give him the ball. Touchdown, Texas. He's got room. Lamar Jackson. Open field. Inside the 20. He is in. Lamar. Spectacular.
Welcome back to the Saturday Air Raid, part of NFL Lab Network. I'm your host, John Roberts, and with me, as always, my good friend, Dan O'Connell. How are we, Dan?
All right, another night, another podcast together, so it's going along nicely, this so far.
I know when Brad said that he wanted to start doing podcasts and he needed people to help out, I don't think that this is what he meant, but here we are, doing it every night.
We just keep going, yeah.
I believe we've also exhausted him of all of his podcasting powers for one 24-hour span. But no, I had to keep going because I love talking about it. Imagine how it's going to be when the season starts. Gee.
I know. It's so close as well when you think about it.
We had discussed the idea of doing a straight after, like a Monday afternoon, Monday evening pod, which I'm kind of into. But going from 3 a.m. through to like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. that night, I find it tough. I don't know about you.
I'd be used to it because when I was working night shift, I was up at
of course
2:30 ready for the games, and then I was working through till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. So I'll be good to go.
I'm still full dad mode. I just haven't got over that hump of staying up too late. But now we'll see how it goes. Okay, awesome show today. We're going to round out our buys and sells, not our highs and lows. That was last night. People that that was last night. People were high on, people were low on, and we're doing the receivers tonight, so it should be good. We went over some quarterbacks that we enjoyed, and they should link up with the receivers nicely here. We went through some running backs, which was a great show. A lot of back and forth, which was good. We'll see how we go tonight. I'm not sure. Did I get yours ahead of time? I can't remember.
You got who I'm lower on. I was still undecided a bit on who I was higher on, but I think I've locked it in now.
Okay, so I struggled with this as well because I'm going over Fantasy Pros Dynasty wide receiver rankings.
Yeah.
I'm looking at everybody. I'm like, it looks right. I think the general fantasy community has done a pretty good job this year, particularly with the receivers. Everyone looks like they're in the right place. I was saying to you just before, I wanted to do Jerry Jeudy. He's going wide receiver 23 at the moment, right after Brandon Ayuk and Jordan Addison and Christian Watson, but before Michael Pittman, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin. And I was like, honestly, that looks correct. I can't knock that. I couldn't keep going on about Kadarius Toney. If you want to hear my thoughts on Kadarius Toney, you can go back and listen to our last episode that we did with Hutch. Shout out Hutch for coming on the show. That was a good get.
That was so good, yeah.
Yeah, what an awesome dude to speak to. So just bright and full of energy and knowledgeable and entertaining and well-spoken. He's the full package.
Certainly is.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I was thinking about this. I wouldn't be surprised if in like 5 or 10 years I'm watching like NFL Network and it's like, oh, there's Hutch.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, yeah.
Maybe even sooner. Okay, so we'll get into the rankings tonight. There's nothing really that's happened in the last 24 hours that we need to cover, I don't think so.
We're in the quiet days at the moment, ready for training camp to kick off in a few weeks.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting. July is here. I'm excited. All right, let's jump straight into it. We won't go for the full sort of like hour that we usually do, I hope. You might be looking at the feed now and it is past an hour. We'll see. Let's kick off with your wide receiver that you're high on.
So there was, like you said, the rankings on Fantasy Pros, like we looked at the quarterbacks and we looked at the running backs, and you could pick out a few of them where you're like, oh, I don't agree with that one. The wide receivers were super tough though. Like they were pretty matched up for where I'd have a lot of players ranked as well when I'm looking at it. I couldn't change too much around. But there's one, when I looked at it, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens this year. It's Arizona Cardinals offense.
Yeah, good call.
I don't think anyone's thinking that they're going to do much this year. We don't know when Kyler Murray's exactly going to come back. So that really throws a spanner in the works of what we can expect from their offense. But the player I'm looking at is Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
He's ranked at wide receiver 30 on Fantasy Pros. I can see him comfortably being inside wide receiver 2 range.
Yeah.
But even for this season, like, you think about what their offense is going to be, what their defense is going to be. They're going to be playing catch up. Basically, like, they're not going to win many games, I don't think. They're pretty, I don't know if they're odds on favourite, but I think they're right there as far as being one of the favourites for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, they are. They are the favourites by a little bit to, I think it's the Texans second.
Yeah, okay. So that there just says they're going to be playing from behind almost every game, which means they're going to be passing constantly. And you look at Hollywood Brown to the first 6 weeks last year, when he had Kyler Murray there with him, his first 6 weeks he had, and this was without DeAndre Hopkins as well, who has moved on. So it's Hollywood Brown, you got Rondale Moore, you've got Michael Wilson, who's a rookie coming in, and then you got Greg Dortch, and then you got the tight ends. So there's not a lot of competition there for him to get targets. So his first 6 weeks last year, he went 6 targets in week 1, 4 catches, 1 touchdown. He had 11 targets and 6 catches in week 2, 17 targets and 14 catches in week 3. And then he had 11 targets, 6 catches, 1 touchdown, 10 targets, 8 catches, 1 touchdown, 9 targets, 5 catches. So he was a massive target hog last year when he was healthy. But then he got that foot injury as well, and he missed the next 5 games. But he was on pace. Like, I think he was inside the wide receiver 1 marks last year in that first 6 weeks. So if he comes back healthy this year, and if he can stay healthy, which is a little bit of a knock on him, but he still played 14 games, 16 games, 16 games, and then 12 last year, where he missed the 5 with the foot injury. So if he can stay on the field and they're coming from behind most games, and he's getting that sort of target share, even without Kyler there, you're going to have Colt McCoy, or like we both want to see Clayton Tune.
Yes, we do.
So, even with those guys there, he's going to have a bit of a drop off in as far as his catch rate goes, just because of the quarterback play. But he's going to get fed in that offense.
But do you think that what he loses in drop off from quarterback production, he'll probably gain from the loss of DeAndre Hopkins? I have to think, right?
Yeah, and even when Hopkins was there, when they both played, I think it was the last 6 weeks of the season, they both played together. Hollywood Brown was still getting a decent amount of targets as well.
Yep. So my thoughts and what I was saying was that I sort of see Colt McCoy sort of similarly to like a Cooper Rush type of backup quarterback, where obviously like they're not going to start. They're not a starting quarterback, of course, we know. However, they can still move an offense sufficiently enough. And I'm thinking about what Cooper Rush was doing with Dallas and with Mike McCarthy, and the idea that Colt McCoy, who sort of bounced around, he's really old now. He's definitely getting on, but I think he can still command an offense decently. I know that the other thing we've been talking about is that the Arizona Cardinals defense we expect to be bad. That's going to force them to move the ball more. I have no idea what to expect from Jonathan Gannon and what his play calling will be like. Do we know who their offensive coordinator is? I just want to have a quick look if that's going to change anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at who that was. So,
but then we haven't even factored Drew Petzing. First season with the Cardinals, 10th season in the NFL, first season as offensive coordinator. Spent the last 3 years with Cleveland as their quarterbacks coach. So Cleveland offense, I mean, with Stefanski in the area, like it could show some good signs. But yeah, and then we haven't even mentioned the part yet what if Kyler comes back like at week 6, week 7? Like when is the Cardinals bye this coming season? I need to have a quick look at that as well.
And you think about, like, they're going into the season as far as I believe, not expecting Kyler to play
Sure.
for the first few weeks at least. So
Yeah.
whether it's Colt McCoy, whether it's Clayton Tune that's going to get the start in week one, they're basically going to be looked at all through training camp as being QB1.
Yep.
So they're going to have that focus on them instead of being the secondary piece to Kyler. All the focus is going to be on them now. So whoever does start week one, they're going to earn the job. So you'd think they're going to go into the season at least feeling confident.
I'm looking at the schedule. It looks like they have a fairly late bye. In fact, I think that's a week 14 bye. The week of December 10th. So that would be, the week 14. So, I mean, they might in all honesty just say like, hey, Kyler, rest up and come back to the bye. The season might be lost and they might just say like, hey, Kyler, don't even worry about coming back. But if he is showing signs of recovering well and he's on track, I don't see why they could get to, so they start the season with the Commanders. They go to Giants, the Giants come to them. Then they play the Cowboys, the 49ers, divisional matchup, and then the Bengals, Rams, Seahawks. So, like, somewhere in there, you can see, like, if they could squeak out a couple of games, like, it's kind of wild to say, but, like, what if they came out against the Commanders and won week one? What if they got over the Rams in week 6? Like, they might sort of look at the schedule ahead and go like, hey, maybe there's a few games we can win here. Because like realistically, I know we talk about like, oh, the teams are just tanking and they're odds-on favorite to get the number one pick. And that might be true. But a lot of coaches, this is what I love about the NFL is coaches are playing for their jobs.
Yeah. It's not the only coach is going to sit there and not try to win. Like, doesn't happen.
It's a first-time general GM. It's a first-time head coach. It's a first-time offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of first times in there, and I think a lot of them will probably fairly accepting going into this season. But yeah, I think the Cardinals won't be a great team, but I think there's still yards to be had, and I think that it's Hollywood Brown who's gonna sneak them up. So that's a great one.
The only thing that's a concern is the amount of touchdowns.
Yeah,
he only had 3 touchdowns on the year last year. But if he gets that back up to 7, 8 touchdowns, like they're going to score some points. And he's going to be the target for it. So if he can get 7 touchdowns on the season with his volume, then he'll skyrocket up the ranks, I think.
And again, we're talking about in Dynasty as well. So at, wide receiver 30?
Yeah, and he's only just turned 26 last month. So,
yeah. Is he on a contract by now? He's not playing on his rookie contract.
Last year.
He could be 5th-year option. He was a first-round pick.
Yeah, he was a first-round pick. I don't know how it works when they get traded. I can't remember.
So, yeah, I think that's a great call. All right. I'm going to pivot. So I had exactly the same thing as you. Everything looks pretty well settled. So I decided to dig fairly deep for mine. I spoke a bit about this when we were talking about Clayton Tune on the quarterbacks. I think I'm going to go with Tank Dell. Tank Dell is not the prototypical wide receiver that you would expect, but he has a lot of things working in his favor that I think are going to work really well for him. He does also have a few knocks, but he is going right now in Dynasty as wide receiver 77. Just ahead of him is Joshua Palmer, Curtis Samuel, Zay Jones, and Odell Beckham. And just behind him is Hunter Renfrow, Isaiah Hodgins, Terrace Marshall, who we might even speak about in a second, and Michael Wilson, who we just sort of lightly touched on before. I think the thing with Tank Dell for me is, and I said this with Clayton Tune, I watched a lot of Houston games here in Australia because it just sort of happened to be what was on for college sports on a Saturday and a Sunday over our weekend. And man, Tank Dell, his route running ability stood out so well. And it wasn't just because he's so small, but he was really easily able to get separation in a lot of games that he played, and he was doing really well. He had some amazing games. He absolutely commanded the ball especially in his 2022 season. So he played 13 games. That's including the bowl against Louisiana, which he actually honestly didn't even play that much of. Here's some numbers that he put up. 7 catches, 120 yards against Texas Tech. Against Rice, 7 catches, 134 yards. Memphis, 10 catches, 81 yards. He had 9 catches, 112 yards against South Florida. Against Southern Methodist, who, again, not a big school, but having said that, 13 catches, 180 yards. He was just dominating those kids. So I know they're more than likely going to go on and be sort of future lawyers, accountants, doctors, professions, and things like that. Meanwhile, Tank Dell's playing in the NFL. But still, East Carolina, 9 catches, 176 yards, and Tulsa, 9 catches, 161 yards. So not a big school, but he was absolutely dominating those guys. I think that a couple of things. So, I mean, the glaringly obvious things that work against him. He's 5'8". He's 165 pounds. He's short dude. His college dominator, though, I just talked about, was in the 79th percentile according to Player Profiler. His yards per reception was 12.8, so 26th percentile. College target share was 30.8, so that's the 92nd percentile. And his breakout age was 20 years old. He's currently 23, so he is sort of a little bit older, but he did still have a fairly decent breakout age. I think with these COVID years, it gets a bit tricky because it means that he's sort of stayed in school a little bit longer.
Yeah.
One thing I do love about him, though, so draft picks, he was the 6th pick of the 3rd round. And he was sort of handpicked by CJ Stroud when he got to the team and was like, who's the receiver that you want most to come with you here? He specifically called out Tank Dell. There's been some awesome footage lately of him training, running routes. He's been working, this is per Rookie Watch, who's a really great sort of Twitter follow that I like to follow for what all the rookies are up to. Dell has been training with Delfonte Diamond alongside Jalen Waddle in preparation for the season. Waddle's been impressed with Dell so far, saying that Dell is the one for real. Diamond he's also had many people come through like CeeDee Lamb, Kyle Pitts, and even Marvin Harrison Jr. So he's amongst the right people. And it's interesting because I think Jalen Waddle he's not like a apples to apples comp for Tank Dell. In fact, no one is unless you're going to throw out somewhere between Tutu Atwell and Devonta Smith. But that's sort of the low hanging fruit. Even then, stylistically, Devonta Smith and Tank Dell, they're such different route runners. They're almost uncomparable. But I think he's amongst the right people there. And then you look at the company that he's playing with in Houston. So they've brought in Robert Woods. He's currently going 95 in Dynasty. They've got Nico Collins, who's had some good seasons, and he's done well given that he's had to play with Davis Mills there. He's going 60th, so he's going a little bit ahead in Dynasty, which I think is makes sense, and I can see why. John Mechie is starting to go around the similar sort of area. He's going 69 in Dynasty and 77 in Redraft. And then, of course, they brought in Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State, who sort of flashed during the Senior Bowl. So I think that there's a lot of good things there for Dell. I think that he's had a really impressive college career, and I think it's the right time for him to come to the NFL. I think he's in a really good landing spot. I mean, I haven't even yet started to talk about CJ Stroud and what I think with him, but the stack combo of CJ Stroud to Tank Dell, I think it's going to be great. I think he's really good at separation. The concern will be size, injury, can he stay healthy? And Houston has actually a really tricky sort of first 8 weeks of the season with teams that they play. So it's going to be a bit of a rude awakening for CJ Stroud and the sort of competition that he comes up against. I'm just going to bring it up now to have a quick look. So they open with, the Ravens, but then they play the Colts, which, I mean, should be a good game. That'll be in Houston. Play Jags, so a few divisional ones that they have to get out of the way. Then they play Steelers, Falcons, who've made a lot of improvements on defense, Saints, Panthers, Bucks, Bengals. I think it'll be a tricky start, and it always is with the rookies, particularly if you've got a rookie quarterback. But we'll see.
Yeah, they'll have some growing pains early on. But like you said, with that receiving room, there's nobody there that stands out as the clear-cut wide receiver one.
Yeah.
Now, Tank Dell, he's not going to be used as your prototypical wide receiver one, but as far as volume share, target share goes, he can be that guy because Nico Collins hasn't shown that he's a big volume guy. John Mechie, we don't know what he's going to be at the NFL level. I really like him, and I hope he comes in and just starts the year on fire after everything he's gone through. But we don't know how he's going to adjust to the NFL yet. Robert Woods, he will give you what he will give you, but that's about it. I'm not expecting too much from him. And then you got Xavier Hutchinson, who again, another rookie. So it's wide open for whoever's going to step up in that offense. And Tank Dell, like you said, he can be that guy very quick and very early on. And the combination he's got with the combination he's got with CJ Stroud, if they can get that going in training camp early, then he'll be very good as far as targets go early on, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching D'Amico Ryan back with the Texans in that environment. Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator for 2023 after spending 6 seasons with San Francisco as well. Most recently serving as the offensive passing game coordinator. So a few San Francisco pieces coming to Houston.
I think if you've got Tank Dell, you need to be patient. And obviously, rookie wide receiver, first year, not many of them flash the way we've seen recently, but you can be patient with him, and if he shows enough, then you're going to be confident moving forward into year 2, year 3 as well.
Yeah, I think, and here's where I am if I'm going into my rookie draft, and not a startup draft, but if I'm going into the rookie draft, I've got him pretty much right behind Zay Flowers. I would think I would take him over Jonathan Mingo, which luckily I think it's probably good that Brad's not here to hear that. I think I take him before Rashee Rice and Josh Downs, although I do like Josh Downs. Jalen Hyatt, I think I'd take him over. So obviously he's not in that top tier of first round picks that went off. And like you're saying, you're going to have to be super patient with him. But if I'm at the back of the second round, I think that's where I'm starting to look his way. So for 77 in Dynasty, I think that there's plenty of receivers that I'd like to take that I wouldn't take ahead of Tank Dell.
He's definitely worth the dart, though.
All right. We're going to try and hazard a guess at what Brad was thinking. So let's try and put this case together. We won't spend too much time on it because I'm not going to speak for Brad. But Brad, who couldn't be with us today, he is high on Terrace Marshall Jr. And I'm not sure if it's a homer pick. Could be. But we did have a sort of a little conversation on Terrace Marshall Jr. because I really liked him at LSU. Even I think he was a nice compliment to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and he did stay back another year. He came in with when did he come in? Did he come in with Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase into the NFL?
He's going into his 3rd year now.
Yeah, so with Jefferson.
Yeah. And he was a 2nd round pick as well.
No, with Chase. So I think, look, I mean, what's the Carolina Panthers receiving room at the moment? We just talked about Jonathan Mingo. They brought in Adam Thielen and they brought in DJ Chark. He's sort of like one of the only ones who's actually been around.
The holdover from
the previous regime. And I don't know if it's a bold prediction or a bold call, but I was saying that I wouldn't be surprised if Terrace Marshall Jr. leads the team in receptions at the end of the season. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a impressive line per se, but I think Adam Thielen will be good. I think DJ Chark has been good in his time. I guess I just need to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Bryce Young in that space. Do you have any thoughts on him?
It's so hard to judge because he's flashed a little bit, but he's never been consistent so far in the NFL. But you look at what Adam Thielen did last year. What's he going to look like now in Carolina with a rookie quarterback? Is Bryce Young going to target the veteran in Thielen and just funnel targets to him? Or is he going to look to get the younger guys involved who are going to be there for longer? And you look at DJ Shark, if he can stay healthy, I think he becomes, I guess, the de facto wide receiver one. But he's struggled to stay healthy as well. And then you look at Jonathan Mingo, I think he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife kind of player that they'll use.
Yeah.
But I think he'll have a set sort of wide receiver role there. So I don't think he's going to be sort of your top two wide receivers on that team. I think they'll just look to use him in a lot of different ways, but he might not get that many targets each game. He might be used as a decoy a lot as well. So there's definitely targets available for Terrace Marshall. It's what he can do with them, which I guess we don't really know at this point. He hasn't really shown that he's going to be that volume sort of guy so far, but the new year, new quarterback, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, new system as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to worry about having a roster spot there for him.
He's going as wide receiver 80 on Fantasy Pros, 3 spots behind Tank Dell, who we just talked about. And yeah, as I was saying, there's also Shai Smith and Laviska Shenault who are sticking around, and Demir Bird from last season.
Goes to Laviska Shenault.
But like we said, like none of those names are scary. So I can see why Brad, who is a eager, close Panthers fan, would be excited. It's kind of like when I think about the Seahawks, how I start, I don't think I was ever too excited about Eskridge, but, there's like a couple of maybe deeper ones. Oh, who was the guy out of Rutgers who was on our team for a little bit? Nah, I can't remember. It's gone. Oh, Bo Melton. Bo Melton was his name.
He's now at the Packers.
Is he on the Packers? He was good. I really liked his tape at Rutgers, and I really liked what he did in the preseason with the Seahawks. I was sad that he let him go. Only so much room. All right, let's jump across now to our players that were low on.
All right. So I have DJ Moore. And he is sitting at wide receiver 19 on Fantasy Pros, which honestly, that makes no sense to me, having him at wide receiver 19. I understand the talent of DJ Moore. I love DJ Moore. But what have we seen from him out of Carolina? He's not going to get more than that at Chicago. Like he's going to be, I think he's ranked a lot lower in Chicago than what he ever was in Carolina. And you look at Justin Fields in that offense. Like we said this last night on the podcast. Justin Fields had 318 attempts last year. Like that's not completions, that's attempts. How are you meant to have a wide receiver in that offense be fantasy relevant to the point where they're ranked at 19? Even if you expect Chicago's offense to have a boost in passing numbers, they have to at this point. But even then, I don't think they're going to jump up that much in pass attempts where you're getting that monster output from DJ Moore with his targets now. I can't see him getting more than 120 targets in that offense. You've got Darnell Mooney as well. They're going to try and get Chase Claypool involved because they essentially used a first-round pick getting him. Then you've got Cole Kmet as well, who they need to target. I just don't understand where the target's going to come from for DJ Moore to return value on wide receiver 19.
If you look at Justin Fields as well and his season, and again, we touched on this because I brought him up as a possible sell candidate last night, which, look, I think it's a bit of a stretch, but there's things there to go by. Like, he started the season 8 completions, 7 completions, 8 completions, 11 completions. The highest it ever got to was 17 completions in the middle of the season. Sorry, against Green Bay, he got 20. He threw 20 completions for 254 yards. no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. This is obviously not about Justin Fields, but it is to say that that's not a lot of volume to go DJ Moore's way. Not to mention some of the receivers that he was throwing to last year. Fields was Dante Pettis, Equanimeous St. Brown. He had Chase Claypool, who just didn't really produce anything. Darnell Mooney was doing really well. I think he probably made up the majority of the receptions until he got hurt. But even as the year sort of tailed off after the bye for the Bears, and the season was obviously over by then, but 14 completions, 152 yards, 15 completions, 119 yards. Finished the season against Detroit, 7 completions, 75 yards. 75 yards in total passing.
It's just scary. I can't see the value in DJ Moore. As much as I love him as a player, I just don't see the value in him at all. And when he was at Carolina, last year he had 118 targets, which was a massive drop-off. The year before that, he had 163 targets. He's not going to get anywhere near that this year. And then the year before that, he was back down 118 targets. So, yeah, his best finish PPR rank-wise was wide receiver 16, and that was in his second season in Carolina. He finished last year as wide receiver 24. The year before that was wide receiver 18. I can't see where the value is in him. I think he's going to drop out of even wide receiver 2 range. I think you're looking at him as a wide receiver 3 flex kind of guy. And for where he's being drafted, I'm not touching him. I'm way out on him.
I've just jumped into we're doing a Scott Fish mock draft at the moment. A couple of us Australians who are in it. And we're currently halfway through the 6th round. And DJ Moore is still sitting there. Now, he's projected to go 67 overall. So that's coming up pretty soon. But you can see like he and DeAndre Hopkins, who's still without a team at this moment, can see that they're at the top of this wide receiver list and they are falling. There's wide receivers after them who are starting to go. We've just had Jerry Jeudy go. We just had Keenan Allen, Deebo Samuel, Amari Cooper go. If you look at the dynasty rankings, like I think that all those guys are ahead of him at the moment. So, some of them, no, they're behind. I mean,
Behind, yeah.
If I look at them, so the names that I just mentioned off here. So DJ Moore, 18, Chris Godwin, 19, Christian Watson, Jordan Addison, who are the new guys sort of coming through. But then Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Deebo Samuel, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin. But you can start to see that they're all, you can see DJ Moore falling. And I think as July rolls through and more people start to draft, maybe in like best ball, a lot of people are drafting him with the hope that he might go off 1 week. But yeah, there's not a lot there for DJ Moore, I think.
Yeah. It's just purely volume wise. They're just not enough targets for him to be relevant at that sort of price point.
And based on last season, not a huge amount of information to go off to suggest that the passing game for Justin Fields will increase. I mean, I'm counting one game with more than 210 passing yards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a great call. I'm going to jump into mine. And mine's kind of a tricky one because, most of the time I don't even know enough about him. But for me, it's Rashad Bateman is a player that I've never really been on since he came into the league in 2021. So he's going into his 3rd season now with the Ravens. He's been a really hard player to judge, mainly for the fact that his rookie season, he had 46 catches for 515 yards and 1 touchdown. His second season, 15 catches, 285 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I do recall a lot of people expressing a lot of hype this time last year for Rashad Bateman, and he was a really hot name that everyone was really, really big on. He's had a really tough time staying healthy. He played the first 4 games, and then got injured against Buffalo. He missed 2 games. He came back against Cleveland, 4 catches, 42 yards, played the Bucs. He had 1 target, got injured, missed the rest of the season. The parts that I think people are impressed by, so that game against Miami, last year, where he had 4 catches for 108 yards and a touchdown. I think people see that, and it's almost the same argument I feel like I'm making for Kadarius Toney, right? As it's like, but there it is. There's that talent that I've been talking about. When he's not injured, he's getting completely unlocked. I struggle with it. Like he is just under 200 pounds, 195. He's 6'1", so he's tall, skinny. He's very fast. But, one of the other things that I struggle with is he was doing this and now before Odell Beckham came in, before they drafted Zay Flowers in the first round. Like now he actually has competition. Even when Hollywood Brown was gone, he didn't really make the most of that opportunity in a lot of his games. So, yeah, I think with the amount that they've paid Odell Beckham as well, the $13 million, is it for 1 year? I think.
Yeah, I think they've only signed him for 1 year.
That's not no joke. That's not chump change. Like that's serious money that they're paying Odell, and I think he's going to command the ball. I know the one thing that might work well for Bateman is that they've talked about they're going to be passing more, and it's going to become more of a passing offense for Lamar. I need to see that first, and I'm not really too interested in Rashad Bateman. Just have a quick look on Fantasy Pros where you can get him. Is wide receiver 39. He's going just after DeAndre Hopkins, George Pickens, and Christian Kirk and Amari Cooper, and just before Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Kadarius Toney. Like I'd happily have like those guys for another year over Bateman.
Yeah,
where do you sit with him?
It's so tough to judge that offense as well. Like you have to expect the passing volume will go up from what it has been. But even if it does, you've got Mark Andrews there who just demands the ball.
Right.
Because of how good he is.
Completely skimmed over Mark Andrews.
Zay Flowers coming in. OBJ there. As much as you're not going to get the OBJ that we all love and wish we had for the entire career, they're going to look to get him involved because of just the personality that he is as well and how they'll want him to be integrated into that offense. So, like you said, I think OBJ is going to get a good target share. And then the health concerns for Bateman as well scare me off. So there's so many red flags on him. He's not someone I'm going to be drafting.
Health concerns for Lamar Jackson as well. Like, I know that they've paid him a lot of money going forward, and a lot of his injuries, I mean, obviously they're not sustained through his rushing ability. Usually they're sort of injuries from being inside the pocket. But last year, 12 games, 2,200 yards. The year before that, 2021, 12 games, 2,800 yards. The year before that, so was that his MVP year was 2019, where he had 3,100 yards and then 2,700 yards in 2020. Like, it's not a high passing volume. And Mark Andrews is still there. I really like Isaiah Likely as well. I think he's probably going to take a step forward in his second year. Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers will pop because they've spent serious draft capital on him, being a first-round pick. I think he was the 22nd overall pick.
Around that point, early 20s.
So
even if that passing volume does go up for the Ravens and Lamar, I still don't think he's going to become a 4,000-yard passer. Like he's still going to run the ball. They're still going to run the ball as a team, maybe not as heavy as they did in the past, but they're still going to use Lamar. Lamar's still going to use his legs. I don't think he's going to have that 4,000-yard season passing. So, seeing Bateman kind of return value from where he is, I don't think he's worth that risk personally.
Other receivers on the Ravens as well that they've kept around, Devin Duvernay, like he will pop for a game or two if he's not doing any special teams. Nelson Aguilar is there that they brought in, and he was a pickup from New England, who they cut. James Prochet, we've seen Laquan Treadwell. I'm just sort of like naming off household names from years gone by. Wow. Andy Isabella is on the Ravens. He must be trying out. Hopefully he can make the 53-man roster. So, plenty of names there, and not enough production for my liking. Having said that, I would, if I was talking about Kadarius Toney, you could see me almost saying exactly the same stuff, but making the argument for. So I'm probably talking out my ass both sides. Now,
I'm happy to just let him slide on by.
Yeah, I think so. Who was Brad's? Oh, okay. So Brad's guy that he's lower than the consensus on was Garrett Wilson. Problem for us though is we're very high on Garrett Wilson. So I don't know.
I'm big on Garrett Wilson.
So maybe we'll just try and see if we can make a case for why someone might not be. I think that it's the draft cost is what has turned Brad off as well, because he's in Dynasty right now going as wide receiver 5 off the board, which for his second year is very high. He's going just in front of Jalen Waddle and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chris Olave, just behind AJ Brown and CeeDee Lamb. So I can see some people have talked about Aaron Rodgers coming to town and maybe not having the season that everyone is expecting him to have. Who was making that argument? It wasn't you, was it?
Not me, no. I'm actually big on Aaron Rodgers this year.
Yeah, so am I. Maybe it was Brad who was. I think it was Brad in the quarterback show who said that
he was saying the offensive line's it's a dangerous offensive line for Rodgers. So I think that's where his concerns sort of stem from. But he also said that Rodgers has got his guys coming in. He's got Lazard coming in, who he targeted at Green Bay. But when you've got a Garrett Wilson type of player there,
yeah,
I don't care if Lazard's been with Rodgers for the last 5 years. You've got Garrett Wilson there. You're going to use him. And he's Rodgers has already spoken up about Garrett Wilson being on that same sort of career path as what Devontae Adams was, and that sort of talent. So, yeah, we'll have to come back to this when we get Brad on a pod next and just see what his thoughts were, because I'm in complete disagreement with him.
I know, look at us.
The capital on Garrett Wilson, personally.
Even in us trying to explain some flaws in him, they still end up being pros in the end. I mean, the receivers he's playing against, like you're saying, Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb have come in from Green Bay. He's playing with Mecole Hardman. I'm looking on our lads at their depth chart at the moment. Corey Davis is still there. Sure, I think he might pose as the biggest threat. Denzel Mims, I'm not concerned about. And I'm not concerned about any other names that I'm seeing there as well. Tight ends, Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzama, really like those guys. And Zach Kuntz from the draft, Kenny Yeboah is still kicking around. So not a single name there that I'm actually concerned about. I think that, what's the ceiling for Garrett Wilson? It's like a poor man's Devontae Adams almost, or what's the floor? I don't see him dropping off. I think the Jets are going to be a good side this year.
Well, you look at the quarterbacks he was dealing with last year as well. He had Zach Wilson, he had Mike White. These are quarterbacks, and he was putting up good numbers still. The touchdowns weren't there, but he was putting up good numbers. So
sorry.
I think Rodgers had one of his more disappointing seasons last year, and he still put up middle of the road sort of numbers, which we don't expect. We expect so much more from him, but he still put up middle of the road numbers. They weren't completely awful. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder coming into a new system, new lease on life. I'm expecting we're going to see extremely high level play from Aaron Rodgers, and I think Garrett Wilson's the one that's going to go with him for that as well.
Couple of game logs from last year, his first season as a rookie as well. Week 2 against Cleveland. Week 2, his second game, 14 targets, 8 catches, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. Week 13 against Minnesota, 15 targets, 8 catches, 162 yards. Even week 12 against Chicago, 5 catches, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he actually only had 2 games of scoring touchdowns, even though he scored 4 for the season. But yeah, like you were saying, he was playing with Zach Wilson, Chris Strevler. Who were they rolling out? Was it Mike White for the first couple of weeks as well?
Yeah.
And he was putting out impressive numbers, 1,100 yards for the entire season, 83 catches, 147 targets. We know that rookies come in. It's really not often that rookies take a step back, especially first-round production rookies. They usually almost always take a step forward. So Yeah, sorry, Brad.
You look at last year with the Rodgers, it took a little while to get going. We had Christian Watson, who started the year off injured and just couldn't quite get in the offense early on. But the second half of the season, Christian Watson went bang. And Rodgers, there was like 7 touchdowns. Now, I loved Watson. I'm a Packers fan. Happy what I'm seeing from him. Garrett Wilson is so much better than Christian Watson, though.
Yep.
So, I think 7 touchdowns this season for Wilson. It's an absolute baseline for what I'd expect, to be honest.
And my general rule of thumb as well is if they played at Ohio State and their name is not Mike Weaver or Trey Sermon, I'm very happy to have them. So, yeah, we'll touch on that with Brad next time we see him. That's going to do it for our highs and lows, our buys and sells. We'll get back to that on Fantasy Labs when we're in next time. But next week, I want to try and start doing a series of picking up orphan teams. You might be familiar with a screenshot that I shared with you of a team that I think is struggling. And what we're going to do is go over some different ideas with quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers that we like in college that we think that could help build this roster and build a really strong team for the future. But that's it. How's that for the highs and lows? As a little getting to know us experiment for the first few shows.
Yeah, I think we're going to start getting some opinions formed on us. That's what we like and who we don't like. And I'm pretty confident in the players that we're picking in this episode, though. Like we said, it was tough with the wide receivers, but
yeah,
I think we've got a couple on here that will be good to watch during the year to see how we come back to them and see where we rank them at the end as well.
Oh, and this is the other thing about being on record as well, is I'm so actually looking forward now to getting to the end of the season, seeing what was I right about, what was I wrong about, because I'm always thinking about it before the season and years gone by, but I've never actually, once I get to the season, I can never actually remember who I was high or was low on. So now we've got receipts.
Back and think about it too much.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
I only do that with my really bad trades, which is probably more than I'd like. All right, that's going to do it for today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can. You can follow Dan at beard_82 on Twitter. You can follow me at John Lloyd Roberts as well. And of course, follow Brad Bolt1 and NFL Lab Network on Twitter as well. We will catch you next week. Enjoy the week ahead. We'll see you soon.